Well, hey, everybody, I'm Joe Mayers, and this is the Think Forever podcast. Today with me, I have author Alyssa Poblete here to talk about her story, Justice and Mercy. So, Alyssa, welcome back.
Thank you.
To the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I say welcome back, but we're actually in a new space.
We are.
Brand new. This, for our audio listeners, this is mainly for the video folks, but we're in a completely new space, new set. This is the first recording we have done, not just the first interview. This is the first time we've hit record on these cameras and mics.
Yep.
So I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
And I'm glad we're getting to do the interview together.
Yeah.
So to start off, your story released a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
We paused on this interview for a couple of reasons. One, because we were moving and building the new space.
Up until this morning.
Literally this morning. But also because last week was Good Friday and we had that Good Friday project.
Yeah, that was great.
That we were putting out. Thank you. But I'm excited to get back to yours because it also dealt thematically with the Passover, the original Passover.
Yeah.
So start off with, how did you get the idea for this story? Where did it come from?
Yeah. So last year I was reading Tim Keller's book on forgiveness, and I came across this line. And when I read it, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to write that story. Whether or not that was for Think Forever, just for my own self. And the line basically, I don't have it memorized, but he basically alluded to what the Passover night must have felt like for the firstborn son of an Israelite family as he stared at the roasted lamb on the table, knowing that that lamb was sacrificed for him. And I just couldn't get the thought off of my mind. And so much of this story really tied into my own personal story. And it gave me an opportunity through a different form, like fiction, to actually tell it. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it was an amazing story. How does this connect with you?
Yeah. So in that season, as I was reading that book, I was really struggling with bitterness and unforgiveness in my own heart and wrestling through just, I had come to Romans 12, and all of Romans chapters 1 through 11 explore the beauties of the gospel and all the multifaceted ways that God's grace is poured out on us. And then Romans 12 comes up, and it talks about, in light of this is how you ought to treat one another. And I was wrecked because I read those words, and for the first time in my whole life, I thought, no, like I won't, I can't.
Yeah.
And I bawled my eyes out. I was horrified by my own sin, my pride, but I also felt helpless. I didn't know how to change that. And the Lord is so kind. I feel like I'm a walking miracle, how much he's changed my heart throughout the months since then.
Yeah.
And really, it came to just rehearsing the gospel. I can't help but see I'm a recipient of grace, and who am I to not extend that to another? And what I love about writing for Think Forever and writing fiction in particular, because my natural bent is to write autobiographically. And I've always felt a conviction that my words should be a witness of the gospel from my own life. Like, I like to be hospitable with my writing, and I like to invite people into my own story and how God is working in me. But this story was not completely mine to tell. There were aspects to this story that involved other people. And I felt so stunted as a writer. Like, how do I write through this? How do I show the beauty of what God has done in my own heart? And writing fiction allowed me to actually share some very specific ways that God worked without sharing all the gory details, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that you did an incredible job of that, because it's something that really great writers do well, is picking something and writing about it as fiction. not even necessarily just allegory, but
Mm-hmm.
being able to work through some of those things on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you did with
Yeah.
this. I think that it would have been easy for it to get preachy or corny
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if
For sure.
if you're trying to lean too hard on that allegorical aspect, or trying too hard to write yourself into the story,
Mm-hmm.
or any of that, and you avoided those obstacles fantastically. I I think I said this when I introduced the first story episode,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually had to edit out a part and re-record and stitch some things together, because the first time I actually read the story all the way through in one go
Mm-hmm.
was that recording.
Mm-hmm.
And I started crying.
Mm.
And some of it actually, if you watch the video version of this, you will see this. I actually started to have the tears, and then in the next shot they're gone, because I got too choked up and I couldn't read it. So it came across beautifully. There's this moment that there's a lot of moments, but the moment that is sort of the crux of it, when Jariah is contemplating what he's going to do about Dagon and his family.
Yeah.
And they're standing outside, and he's already felt the mercy of the Lamb. He's already been through that emotion, and so he's feeling so grateful. But then it comes to him again, and he doesn't want to, even though he already knows what that mercy is, and he's like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets him there is feeling his father's presence. When he remembers what his father told him, when he remembers the grace that he had received over and over and over and over again, and then he opens the door. And I think that was the moment for me that I was like, okay, I gotta pause.
Yeah.
I can't keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was very beautifully done.
I so relate. That moment in particular was me. It was the hardest. This is the hardest piece I've ever written out of anything I've ever written. And that part in particular, I wrote it in real time as I was still wrestling with emotions. One thing that's interesting with forgiveness is not an emotion. It's actually a set of practices. It's you saying, I will treat you the way that I have been treated. And I'm going to actively pursue that. I'm not going to enact payment any longer. I will absorb the cost. But then the way Tim Keller describes forgiveness is it's similar to paying for a really expensive gift with a credit card, and you're just going to keep paying on it, but the gift receiver won't know. They already got the gift. They received it, but you bear the costliness of that.
Yeah.
And in that moment when I was thinking about, he was in turmoil, I daily am still sometimes in turmoil of just having to rehearse and remind myself of the beauty of the gospel, and therefore my actions change because of it.
Yeah. Do you ever do this thing? I've done this where I make my characters do things that I want to do, but I haven't figured out how to do yet. Like my characters overcome something.
Yes. Yeah.
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 What a great way to work through that with your medium.
Yeah. I actually told, your dad texted me about the story, and I actually told him it was such a gift for me to write, because I actually got to put words to what, both the things I want to be true of me, but also just like the rawness of the complexity of that. And it was a gift to be able to write through the response that I desire in my heart, that I fight for all the time. So it was cool.
I think you did a great job of that. So thank you for opening up about, your own self and just with this story and working through it. Thank you for doing the hard work of it. I know it took a lot, but I think not only was it the hardest thing, but I think it was the best thing.
Thank you for saying that.
I was talking to someone recently who was relating a conversation or a book that he had read about the things that are the most important will cast the longest shadow, will be the hardest to overcome.
Yes.
And I feel that. So thanks for going there.
Yeah, well, thanks for your patience, because I definitely missed the due date by a long shot. So I appreciate it.
it was worth the wait,
Yeah.
and it worked out fine. So, yeah, so I appreciate it. Okay, so one of the things that I like, shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that I like that you did was wrote honest children. The brothers and sister and all of their interactions were very honest. I think a lot of times, lots of people, and myself included in this, have a tendency to either write kids that say things that are too profound.
Yeah. Which would be accurate for your son, by the way. He's one of the most profound kids I've
met.
Yeah,
he's an anomaly.
Yeah. He is.
But when, you'll see a tweet where it's like, my daughter told me today that life is like a dandelion and it goes through all of its cycle. And you're like, no, she didn't.
Yeah.
No, she didn't.
There's no way.
Yeah. And so I think there's either that, or they tend to not give children enough credit for the real thoughts that they'll be having. And so just the interactions between the brothers and, Jariah being the stressed out eldest and feeling the tension between him and his younger brother really just wanting love, but then also having thoughts about God and having a little bit more of that childlike faith and mercy still in him. It was really cool to see that. How do you think you arrived at that balance?
Yeah, you know what? It was because it was dialogue is what drove it, actually.
Yeah.
I really wanted to grow in the use of dialogue in my writing. It's something it's not comfortable for me to write dialogue. And as I wanted to drive the plot, I thought through how would they actually interact? What would their dynamic be? And honestly, they kind of wrote themselves. I know there's some authors who are like, oh, I learn about my characters and I let them kind of write themselves. I've never been that kind of a writer, but it just kind of happened this year, which was really fun.
Well, I love that. Yeah. That's exactly what you want, is to just to create these characters and throw them and be like, what would they say to each other?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really fun. That was probably my favorite, the most fun part of writing this.
Yeah. Well, it was awesome. And just seeing the way that they could go instantly from serious to funny back and forth. And, I know there wasn't a ton of humor in the story, but there was some.
Yeah.
When the little brother's being real little brothery and stuff like that. You know what it made me think of? Okay, side story. For those of you who don't know, Alyssa and I actually know each other in real life. Our families have been friends for a long time, and our kids are in the same kindergarten class. So, a couple of weeks ago, I pick up my son, your two sons, and and another cousin.
Yes.
And I'm taking the boys after school out to pizza and to go to a park. Just going to have fun. We get them all loaded up in the car, and I start playing just whatever music playlist I was listening to. And it's my music.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm playing this song. The song comes on. It's from A Day to Remember. It's that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sure Judson loved that.
Let's go. And they're all amped up, and you get all these boys, and they're like between 6 and 8. And they're like, it's not their style of music.
Yeah.
They're having fun, but one of them, I can't even tell you which one, is like, what is this music we're listening to? And then Tolk, my son, turns around and he's like, oh yeah, didn't I tell you my dad listens to this kind of music?
Yeah.
And they're like, what even is this? And I instantly felt old.
Yeah.
I'm like,
for sure. Kids will do that
like,
too.
what the heck?
Yeah.
But then I had the opportunity to sort of share the aux with
Mm-hmm.
them and get, what are they into? And
Yeah.
there's a lot of, mostly Forrest Frank.
Oh,
They're really into that.
Big Forrest Frank fan.
But yeah, it just the spontaneity
Mm-hmm.
of the dialogue and like
Mm-hmm.
things coming out of mouths.
I know. See, the thing is, what I'm sad about is I can never possibly come up with the gold that comes out of my kids' mouths sometimes because it's just so weird or so,
Yes.
specific.
I
Like,
know.
how would you ever think that? There's so many one-liners my kids have said where I'm like, I wish I could think like that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, when it's the hardest is when it's like a little bit inappropriate, but it's
Mhm.
really funny.
Oh, yeah. And you have to try not to laugh.
Yeah. Man, if it's really funny,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just laugh and
Yeah.
be like, you know what? That was good. Let's
Yeah.
save that until you're older.
Yeah.
Like, don't
Yeah.
say that in front of your kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, definitely not.
Please. But
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, even if it did, that school office visit would be worth it.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, anyway,
Mm.
that is a very long way to say that I really enjoy the spontaneity of the kids. Going back into the history
Mm-hmm.
and culture
Mm-hmm.
of this story, you dug up some things that were really cool. I know
Mhm.
that in our first sort of back and forth of looking at the story, I was asking a couple questions
Yeah.
like, you mentioned vultures and like,
Yeah, were there actually vultures
were
there?
vultures a thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
I assume so, but
Yeah.
I don't know. And the big one was, is there biblical accounts or historical accounts of Egyptians
Mm-hmm.
jumping ship?
Yeah.
And you said yes, so I was wondering if you could fill us in a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So Exodus 12 talks about how there was mixed company that fled with the Israelites from Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
which the Hebrew word, it basically alludes to a diverse group of people, which scholars do assume probably were the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about this is God throughout the plagues keeps saying like he's doing this to make his name known,
Mm-hmm.
Yahweh, that he's making his name Yahweh known to the Egyptians and to the watching world, to the Israelites as well.
Yeah.
And this is one of the coolest parts. And I actually, we won't be able to dig into all the beauty that comes in this story,
Mm-hmm.
but I highly recommend people study it because it's just so loaded with interesting things. But each of those plagues were not just random. They were related to Egyptian gods. So like the blood turning or the water turning to blood was an attack on the god of the Nile. And it like the Nile was a life source in an agrarian culture. They were dependent upon that. It would affect their economy and their livelihood and their health and their well-being. And God is making a statement here like, your God is nothing on me. Like, he can't stop me. And then like the frog god was like a goddess of fertility. So it put the Egyptians in this terrible situation because they were not supposed to kill a frog. So there's hordes and seas of frogs all around them and they have
Mm-hmm.
to avoid stepping on them. And it's this horrible thing if you do. And so like when you study through like the richness
Yeah.
of that story, it's so much more. So the Egyptians, there were some that genuinely were seeing this God is above our gods. And the most logical response is
he's just doing a clean sweep of the entire Egyptian pantheon.
Yes.
That's not the word. That's a Greek word, but
I know what you're saying.
yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
So cool.
See, that's what I love about this stuff.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So there was opportunity
Mm-hmm.
throughout that entire process
Mm-hmm.
for people to see and understand.
Mm-hmm. And it was, I imagine for the Egyptians, it was painfully obvious. I mean, to some, I don't think that they agreed, but they did see Yahweh as a powerful God.
Yeah. So they knew that was,
Mm-hmm.
that's really cool. And it was just before that at the burning bush when God revealed his name
Mm-hmm.
to Moses. So this was sort of like the,
yeah,
okay,
the inauguration of introducing himself to everyone.
to everyone else.
Yeah.
What an introduction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? Yeah.
My goodness.
So
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say something that came up as I was studying through just the history of that time.
Mm-hmm.
This part was interesting. So if an Egyptian were to join the covenant family of God,
mm-hmm.
There was a process for that. They had to be circumcised. And so Dagon, he comes and he becomes part of the Israelites, but I've written a lot of gory things for your podcast. I've talked about martyrdom. I've written about beatings. I've written about entire cities being destroyed, but that's where I draw the line. So I just alluded to, he talked to other people, something went down, and people are saying he's a believer now.
So So, well, I didn't miss it.
Okay, good. I didn't know if there's any listeners who are like, that would never happen.
It's okay. We're setting the record straight now.
We're setting the record straight.
That was on the table.
Yes.
We dealt with that in a different way.
Yes.
Moving on.
Yes.
So you've been through sort of the history and the culture of that. Were there any other themes sort of running throughout the story that you wanted to highlight?
That's a great question. Sorry, that was a curveball I wasn't prepared for.
That's okay.
Let me think through it.
We love curveballs. We love thoughtful moments and things like that. So there's not a right or wrong answer here.
Yeah.
It's just the way that everything was woven together, even with some memories, and the way that time proceeded throughout it was great. So I'm just curious if there was anything that you really enjoyed that you wanted to highlight.
Well, I think a theme that came up that was never my intention, it just kind of happened, was the dad's influence on his son. That just came through. I was trying to think, how did he learn these things? How did he have conviction like this? How would this have compelled him? And the dad had a significant influence on his son. And it just, for me personally, I think really made me feel the weight and the gravity of these young years I have with my own children, of these are teachable moments. In fact, just the other night, I had a moment with my son. We went on a little mother-son date, and it was wonderful until the very end, and it just kind of crashed and burned in the gift shop at Dave & Buster's. He's very indecisive.
I've been in that gift shop. Yeah, I get it.
It's a pretty terrible place.
I get it.
He was just so upset and drove the whole way home crying. And when he got home, he ran upstairs, had said a few mean things in the car. So there was a need for a conversation. And I walked upstairs, and the first thing he said to me is, "I'm so sorry, I didn't handle that the right way." And then he just burst into tears, just like instant, recognition of his sin. And it was just the sweetest moment to just talk about grace and not just go over and over again of what went wrong and why I'm disappointed. Instead, to just be able to have a conversation of, this is what God has done for mommy. This is what God has done for you. And therefore, there is freedom in Christ. And these little moments are really significant. So, yeah.
Wow. I feel like that story that you just told, I feel like I've had that exact same interaction on multiple different times with our 6-year-old, because they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you feel this too. I feel like I fail parenting all the time,
Totally.
where I go, oh man, I could have, I didn't follow through here. I didn't, I didn't give enough grace. I wasn't patient
Mhm.
enough.
Mhm.
Um, but seeing Jariah's memory of his dad in
Mhm.
the story and the things that he remembers highlights those kinds of moments.
Mhm.
Um, oh man, that wrecked me when I started thinking about Jariah because he's what, 13, 14,
Mhm.
something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
So to the point where society would have seen him as a man,
Mhm.
but he's, he's still a boy.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
boy with man responsibilities
Yes.
and not fully equipped to deal with all of that. And the person who would help him deal with all of that is his dad,
Mhm. Yeah.
and his dad's gone.
Yeah.
And so the loss of his dad is the thing that he's trying to deal with, and his dad is the
Mhm.
one who could help him through it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that. And so he's
Mhm.
doing his best, and he's the one who's now seeing, oh, I wasn't patient enough with my brother,
Mhm.
but then also still feeling the weight and having that one little memory
Mhm.
with his dad about mercy
Yeah.
was the thing that got him through.
Yeah.
And that was just,
Mm. Yeah.
oh, to a dad with a son,
Mhm.
and I think for all parents, but just the fact that it was a father and son, and that
Mhm.
was the specific memory,
Yeah.
uh, it just made me think, that, I really want to leave those memories.
Mhm. Yeah. Absolutely.
And, not every day can be, a hit.
Mhm. Yeah.
But,
Unfortunately.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, but we can do our best, and that was
Mhm.
inspirational
Yeah.
to me.
Cool. That's awesome.
I saw a comedian the other day
Mhm.
who was talking about Bluey, the show
Oh,
Bluey,
yep. Yeah.
and was like, it makes parents feel sort of insignificant
I knew you were gonna yes. Yeah.
sometimes when you're like, dude,
Yeah.
these these dog parents are killing it
They are, yeah.
all
They
the
always
time.
kill it. It does
Yeah.
it really feels exposing of
Yes. But then he said, here's the deal though, is that Bluey episodes are only 7 minutes long.
Yes.
I'll bet I have 7 good parenting
Yeah.
minutes a day. So you
Yeah.
stitch those together and put them through.
Love that.
I cannot remember his name right now, but I'm gonna go find this clip and I'm going
Oh,
to
you should.
tag him in,
Yes.
the comments of this because I am not stealing the joke. It was just
Yeah.
funny.
That's so
Um,
good.
okay, so any last thoughts about this story before we wrap up?
Yes. One thing at the very end of the story, right before I submitted it, I was kind of struggling with, do I want Dagon to like profusely apologize
Mhm,
for what he's done? Like he
mhm.
gets welcomed into this home
Yeah,
and he clearly had um been unjust to Jariah. Surely he knows that he's on the receiving end of Jariah's grace. Like, should he apologize? Um, I left that out for a particular reason. Um, I know for me personally, my walk with the Lord, when I first made a profession of faith, I really had no idea like what I was actually committing to.
yeah.
And I really, this is embarrassing. This is not everyone's story, but I really didn't have a keen understanding that I was a sinner saved by grace. I knew that God was good and I wanted to hang out with his people and I wanted to live my life for him, but I really did not understand like the depths of my sin or what I was actually gaining relationship with Christ, my
Mhm.
savior for eternity.
Yeah,
And I was thinking for Dagon in that moment, I just pictured him as a father who just recently heard, okay, this is the God of all creation and he's coming, his wrath is coming for my son.
yeah.
His whole focus is on, I just want to protect my son. And my hope for him is that this was for me, this was a cliffhanger of who knows like really where this is going. But my
Yeah,
hope for him is that he sees that he didn't just gain the safety of his son, but he gained a savior for himself
yeah.
and an eternity in relationship with his maker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if like listeners were wanting that or thinking, wow, there was like no reconciliation there. The story was mostly about Jeriah's heart and Jeriah's willingness to extend forgiveness. And I picture Jeriah right after they leave Egypt, still struggling with bouts of anger and having to absorb the pain of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, I left it intentionally unbuttoned for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I think, and I know I've said this to you. I've said this to a ton of people
Mhm.
when we're going through the process of stories. I say it about my own work to myself
Mhm.
that I don't care what happens.
Mhm.
Just tell me the truth.
Yeah, right.
And so it doesn't need to satisfy every desire of the
Mhm.
listener or the reader.
Right.
It just needs to be true.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what it felt like.
Mm, mhm.
Uh, because same exact thing. Being a dad, I can see all of that stuff
Mhm.
going on and saying clearly there is a power here that is greater than myself.
Mhm.
And the drive to do something about that
Mhm.
comes from having a family,
Mhm.
having
Mhm.
a wife and kids.
Mhm.
I was reckless
Mhm.
before I was married and
Mhm.
before I had kids.
Mhm.
Um, I I used to ride a motorcycle and I
Mhm.
crashed a dirt bike and I hurt myself really bad.
Mhm.
And then when I had kids, I sold my motorcycle.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm not saying that if you don't do that, then you're not a good dad. I'm
Right.
saying that it
Priorities
it
change.
was, yeah, for me, that was a priority that shifted, and it was a choice that I made.
Mhm.
Um, and so I can totally see his focus being on that,
Mhm.
and then, growing
Yeah.
later on.
Yes.
Um, because at the moment when they start hearing the screams of the Egyptians in
Mhm.
in the story,
Yeah.
uh, Dagon just grabs his son and just starts weeping,
Yeah.
and he's just saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you."
Yes.
Um, which puts him on the trajectory for understanding that he didn't deserve it,
Right.
but how to repair the
Yeah.
relationship because, now essentially he's traveling with Jeriah and his family.
Right. And well, one thing I'm thinking is like this is our story too.
Mhm,
We have had moments as believers where we are confronted with the reality that we're on the receiving end of grace, and all we can say is like, "Thank you, thank you, thank you,"
mhm,
and that propels us towards love for the Lord.
mhm.
And um, so I saw that as like him really for the first time experiencing what grace actually is
Yeah,
in a tangible way. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it was very well done. You told the truth. You were raw and very open
Mm.
with all of this. So thank you for bringing that to us. I'm just looking forward to seeing what you decide to write next because I know that for the most part you write nonfiction,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I think maybe you might be
I'm having so much
finding your
fun.
feet
Yeah.
with fiction.
It's
So
I'm only doing it because of you, but I'm starting to really love it. Yeah, I
yeah.
really am.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll make sure that we push you to do something for next season too.
Yeah,
All
that'll
right.
be fun.
Well, thank you for being here with
Thanks for
me.
having me.
And thank you, everybody, for watching if you're on video or for listening if you're on audio. We will be back again for one more story and one more interview. So make sure to follow along and join us for those. Alyssa, see you next time.
See you next time.